I like that idea.
All right. I think I'll go into sketching now because a little bit. Okay. So let's do this. No fill. Okay. This I'm thinking could basically be a welcome screen to just a little splash screen, a welcome screen.
Sure.
That talks a little bit about the application. Since we already spoke that these might be new users, I'm thinking we can have a little information or education, maybe sliders, maybe a little like 3 sliders or something about the app.
Oh, so this is like is this part of onboarding?
Yeah, kind of part of onboarding, yes. So
like how to use.
Yeah, what you can do.
Got it.
So keep track of your funds. Help them stay, our name.
Yeah, exactly.
And then basically.
What's the last one about? Just curious, like how is stay updated specifically referred to?
So I was thinking, of course, keep tracking would be one thing, help them stay healthy. I think one of the problems that we were trying to solve also was, it was around the troubleshooting, right? So I say that.
I feel like the first two you have is pretty good covered, like help them stay healthy. I feel like that sort of cover the troubleshooting, unless you were thinking about something different.
No, I think you're right.
Okay, we can keep this too for now.
Okay, so of course, I think with this, we just have a little bit of sign in or login. I mean, sign up or login. Just maybe like their, I'm going to say just email and password, sort of very basic. Just coming onto the dashboard now. I'm just going to change the color maybe here to green, just so that it tells a little bit more about what the branding could be around, right?
Sounds good.
Okay, so the first thing would definitely here like a search. So keywords like tribe plants. This is like a search bar. I'm just gonna remove it. Okay. Okay, so search for problems, dry plants, something like that. Okay, next I was proposing to have some cards over here, sort of like, common problems, and then user can just tap on it and understand more about it.
Oh, okay. So those are some articles, like recommendations that might be like interesting to the user.
Right.
Got it.
Then I think our main section here would be add your plant, and then a little maybe icon about the plant so that user would know that they can just add and start tracking
Sure.
your plants to track. Okay. Another thing that, again, I'll go back to it. I know that we just have like 3.5 minutes left. So
maybe we can, how about let's talk a little bit. And I know we focused on, like you mentioned, on first-time user experience, but I'm curious to hear a bit more. Like, how do you envision the dashboard to look like for existing users? Like once they have their plans added, how would you want to design the dashboard?
Yeah, of course, why not? So, okay. Basically, what I'm thinking to change here that might be more helpful for existing users, we still would keep the same. But for the add region, I think this can take a lower priority. And instead of having this, user can basically, kind of have their plans here. So a little like, kind of like my plans section. So
okay. I see.
Plants. And then this is basically either the picture, the image of the actual plant, or like just a Google search kind of image over here to explain about the plant. And then a little text around, I don't know, snake plant, I'm also thinking from the point of, if this plant is requiring more attention based on the tracking results that user have input, we can just have like a little red, dot over here at the top.
I see. So yeah, definitely. I think using color will be helpful to indicate the status for sure.
Yeah, that this needs more attention than that this plant right now. So doing something like that. Also, once user taps on it, basically after that, of course, for now, user can discover and just search for the plants, for the problems and read about it. But once user has added it, I think what we can help user with, click on it, and okay, let's create a new one. Basically, this is about the snake plant now.
Oh, okay. So now we're looking at after you tap into the first plant?
Yeah, so now it's basically about this particular plant.
Got it.
Then we can have last. Of course, since we have the red dot here, I think we can just talk about needs more watering based on the problems that user might have input. And then for the tracking, I think basically for the tracking, I think, we can say like, you are good for now. I mean, if there is nothing else, kind of bothering, something like that.
Yeah.
And then a little bit more about how snake plants generally, a little bit more about the plant, how snake plants generally are.
Got it.
And what kind of environment is better for them. So just a little.
Sure. Cool. Okay. Awesome. Sounds good. So that's like, we can give some tips or like reminders on what they need to do with the individual plant. That sounds good. We're on time in terms of the design exercise, but I do want to like maybe we can spend like quick 2 minutes. You can just do a quick summary of what you have designed for this exercise.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Thanks for that. Okay, so I think our story initially and the problem was that we need to design an application, a mobile app for the users who have just brought their plans. and they don't know about how to keep them healthy, how to take care of them, basically. So for the solution, what we have designed is now an app called Green Home that basically helps users to keep track of their plants and help them stay healthy, and provide solutions around what can be best done to take care of their plants. We have a simple sign up and login just so that we know how many users are basically joining the application. For the dashboard part and the main dashboard for this particular application for a new user, what basically we have provided users with is a search button or a search bar for them to identify, for them to just enter the problems that they are facing and read solutions about it. So just a quick summary of what can be done if they are seeing dry leaves. We have also added like a few cards, a few tiles at the dashboard for them to see what are the common problems with most plants that they're, this can be dynamic. This could even be an educational area sometimes. Sometimes you can, look at what others are facing, kind of, let them know that there is a community, people like them.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yes.
The problems. And then for the new users, we have add your plants to track. This is the place where users can just simply tap on a add button and start adding their plants that they currently own. Currently own or not, if they just want to know about it, it's something that they want to add for future. Then user just sees the dashboard, and then the plants that they have basically at their home. Tap on the plant, and then user can actually read more about what went wrong or what's going on with that particular plant. If that plant needs more attention, I think we'll just prioritize it, put a red dot on it saying that this plant needs attention right now. And we can basically let the user track and keep their plants healthy in this process.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. One quick question on the second last screen, like we have on the dashboard for existing users. What's your thought behind like having this layout of like rounded, multiple kind of a carousel view? Like, I'm just curious, like what if the customer only what if the user only have one plant? How would you want? What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm thinking even in case of one plant, I mean, this may take up more space over here, based a little bit more responsive. But as soon as users starts to add more plants, we can maybe just squeeze that a little bit. And
Got it. I see. Yeah, so it can be responsive. Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Awesome. Cool. I think overall you did a really good job. Your time management is very much on track. I realize you spent roughly 10 minutes for diving deeper in asking questions. That is great. That's a very important part of the whiteboard exercise, actually. And you spent another 10 minutes roughly going into ideation, and the last 10 minutes on the actual like concept generation. So I think you did a really good job for time management. I've been making notes as we're doing this exercise. So let me share with you a couple of observations or tips, recommendations I have for you. First thing, I feel like you did a good job for asking questions and framing, for example, who are the target user? And especially how are they solving their current problem? Those are really good questions. But when we get to ideation, I feel like when we get into ideation, it started getting a little bit confusing because one thing might be helpful is to have like a critical user journey and try to define what is the success look like for user, because this is a pretty big problem we're trying to solve. Design a whole app for like a plant care app. And there are multiple problems we mentioned, like we want to solve, for example, help users keep track of the routine things like watering. And there are troubleshooting involved. So when you get to like ideations, I feel like I've seen people do it differently. Some are just doing like tags, bullet point, perfectly fine. Sometimes you can do like a flow chart, like communicated user flow. But one thing can really help this step to make it actually more effective, because we just went very much diverge to discover the problem. Right. Ideation is started, we need to get narrowed down. And when we try to get narrowed down, it's really helpful, I think, to set up what is the success look like, because we can't talk about onboarding, searching, setting notification, reminder, all of those, like it's impossible to fit in this one exercise.
Yeah.
So this is where we can talk a bit about the flow. For example, how does the success look like for you as you design this? Maybe is as a user, I was able to set up a reminder so I can get weekly reminders to get back to actually keep the plants healthy by watering it. Or you can set it broader. Maybe, for example, as a user, I want to be able to find out how to solve the dry leaf issue. So start getting to the journey mindset. That will help a little bit to narrow down to actually what are the key touch points involved in that journey. And it's perfectly fine if you decided to focus just on one. If you think it's like the time is impossible to talk about everything. So that's one suggestion I have. And when we get to, let's see, like dashboard and recommendations, I think, yeah, it's great that you had some idea about, like, for example, like where to buy and stretch idea to like maybe help users discover what are the plants they want to buy. And which I also noticed, like, because the key problem framing on this exercise is actually more solving like how to take care of their existing plants. And you were able to like realize that and make that a stretch and focus more on the core problem right away. That was a great observation and reaction. And one other thing is, I noticed that when you shift to the last 10 minutes, like start drawing the screen concept mockups, you just jumped right in, like started drawing the first frame. I think those are the sessions, like the times it will be really helpful. Keep a little bit context. Feel very comfortable, say, hey, I think we spent a good amount of time diving into the problem and ideation. How about now let's take a look at some like concept, and I will start mock up some ideas and we'll go from there. So give the viewer a little bit context and talk very much out loud as you think and move forward. That will help people realize, oh, okay, now we're looking at concept.
Okay.
Yeah. And then let's see. Yeah, I think one other thing is I realized the scope is really huge for this exercise. Right. And as you started like drawing those frames, I would encourage you to try to spend more time on the core problem solving, and like in steps, for example, like welcome, sign up, login. It's okay to like touch very lightly, or sometimes you don't even need to draw a screen. You can just say it. The reason I say it is because I think as we get towards to the end of the exercise, it feels a little bit rushed, because I feel like we are just getting to the very core screen, for example, dashboard and how the plant profile screen look like, where I think if you are able to spend a bit more time on that versus like sign in or the secondary screens, that will make the story and the whole exercise even more successful. And at the end, I just want to mention, I think it's always helpful to leave a little bit, like just 2 minutes or 3 minutes at the end, like do a quick summary. One thing I might add is actually, how did your solution connect with the success matrix? You asked about the success matrix at the beginning, which is really good. And I think 2 things I mentioned there, one is we want to gain new user. The other is we want a good engagement. And it's always important to, like, for any design, to communicate the impact and especially how your solution solve the problem. So here, I think it will make the story even more powerful if you can perhaps tie it up. For example, hey, I think because we want to gain new users, so we want to make the onboarding really simple, like as quick as possible, which is why you have very minimum screens for that. And also to help like increase engagement for existing users, I decided to have this type of like reminder system so we can keep users engaged even after they sign up. So that's the idea. So I think you have those really good concepts and ideas already. It's just at the end, try to tie up how did your design solution connect with the success matrix. Yeah, and one last thing, I think at the end, it might be helpful if you want to talk a little bit like afterthoughts. Like, for example, if I had more time, I want to probably do this and that. And that is a perfect chance to bring up user research because, Whiteboard is a mock. It's not a real project, and you won't be able to have those data or research to support your device decisions. For example, when I asked you about the dot design for the existing dashboard, like what's the reason of the design UI, right, and how would you want to handle that if there's only one plant? Just an example. For that kind of question, you can totally bring up the perspective of, hey, if I'm doing this like in a real project, I would love to involve user research. I would love to test like a couple variations and understand users' feedback. So that's just one last thing. I think it will be helpful to introduce that perspective that shows your mindset, how you want to test and validate your design decisions. Yeah.
That's very insightful, Shu. I think I've already noted down a few things. And yeah, I think I spent a lot of time ideating, just not touching the main problems, probably, spending more time exploring what could be done. So
yeah, but you asked a really good question. The ideation starting part was a little bit, I think, feels a little bit struggling, try to narrow down to the past. So like you can, I think it's always helpful to have some type of framework for your own use, like templates. So if you have, for example, like whatever framework you want to borrow or refer, that might help you to plan your ideation section, that can be helpful too.
Makes sense. Yeah, that is something that I can do before, go deep diving into the whiteboarding challenge.
Yeah, totally. But overall, I think you did it really well.
Thanks. And I really liked your point about relating the solution with success metrics. And of course, in the end, talking about if I had more time, and I would have done more user research. That's very interesting. I think that's something that I've never thought of before.
Ah, cool. I'm glad it's helpful because, it's Whiteboard is a very constrained space because you have very limited time to work on this big problem. So it's helpful to kind of touch on certain things that just to show you have that mindset as a designer. So involve data, involve research when you try to make design decisions.
Also, and I just wanted to ask one last question based on, from the person who's taking the interview. I mean, of course, in this whole problem, I might not be able to answer a lot of edge cases, and use cases.
Yeah.
So is it okay, if I start narrowing down, and I don't know, I don't want the interviewer to think that I'm not thinking about those problems.
In terms of edge cases?
In terms of edge cases, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think for the exercise itself, because of the limited of time, I think it's definitely a good idea to focus more on the core experience and the core problem. But it's helpful to touch on okay, there might be edge cases like this and that. I'm gonna focus on the core experience first, and if we have time and left, we can talk more about the edge case. Just have this set up the expectation by actively communicate what you're thinking. Because if, for example, if the interviewer actually want to look at edge case, that's the time they will give you the signal. Hey, how about let's actually spend more time on that. So it's only by speaking and elaborating what you're thinking, what you want to do next, you can get the signal. Hey, is that the right path you want to move forward and spend more time on?
Okay, so basically just touch base, but then start, talking more about the core problem.
Yeah. I think what you did is good, like to focus actually more on the core problem. But for example, the ideas you talk about, like help people purchase. And I think you also mentioned community at some point. Those can be really good stretch ideas. So you can talk about those towards the end, say, okay, there might be other things like in terms of helping monetization or helping people to get engaged even more by building a community. So I wouldn't spend the most of the time on that, but it's good to help just to share because you have those great thoughts.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.